He hugged her, as if he knew this would be her last moment of happiness. The crowd could barely imagine what was about to happen that night. The Michael Jackson show was in full swing, and the stage glowed with lights that seemed to reflect the hearts of every fan in attendance. But among the thousands of people, there was a different story, hidden between tears and a shy smile. In the middle of the audience, a young girl, with a fragile appearance and a determined look, held a weather-worn poster. The handwritten words trembled in the soft light of the surrounding lanterns. "Michael, my biggest dream is to hug you before I leave." For her, this wasn't just a show. It was the last attempt to fulfill a desire that he had carried in silence for so long. As the first chords of Billie Jean filled the stadium and Michael began to dance, something seemed to change in the air. There was an almost invisible connection that linked that young woman to the stage, as if destiny had already decided that that night would be different. No one there knew, but what was about to happen would be remembered as one of the most exciting moments in the King of Pop's life. And so beneath the screams of the crowd and the glare of the lights, a story began to unfold. It wasn't just about music, but about empathy, dreams, and a gesture that would show the world that Michael Jackson's true magic was in his heart. Her name was Emily, a girl of just 13 years old, whose life had been marked by a silent and painful battle against a rare disease. From a young age, Emily learned to turn each day into a small victory, even while dealing with the weight of intense treatments and physical limitations. But despite all the difficulties, there was something that brought him strength: Michael Jackson's music. Emily grew up listening to his songs, watching videos of his performances, and dreaming of the day when she could somehow be in the same room as him. For her, Michael was not just an artist. He was her inspiration, her hope, the constant reminder that life, even in its darkest moments, could have beauty. Over time, however, Emily began to understand that her battle was coming to an end. The doctors had been clear with his parents. There were only a few months left, but instead of giving in to despair, Emily decided she would do something extraordinary with the time she had. His biggest dream was simple, but it seemed impossible. She wanted to meet Michael Jackson, just a moment to thank the man who, without even knowing it, helped her fight for so long. With the help of family and friends, Emily wrote a letter. In it, she described how Michael's songs had been her soundtrack during her most difficult times, and how a hug from him would be the greatest gift of her life. His parents, although skeptical, decided to do everything they could to make sure. The message reached its destination. They sent emails, called producers, and even made an appeal on social media, until one day, magic started to happen. The letter reached the hands of someone close to Michael's team. At first, it was just one of the thousands of orders he received, but upon reading Emily's words, something touched the King of Pop's heart. He knew he needed to do something, and that's how the impossible started to become reality. While Emily continued to dream, Michael Jackson made the decision that would change his life forever. Michael Jackson was backstage, surrounded by his team, preparing for another performance. It was a familiar routine for him, tweaking details, rehearsing moves, and making sure everything was perfect for the show. But that day, something special caught his attention. A letter, simple and delicately folded, was handed to him by one of his assistants, with the explanation that it came from a fan whose case was extraordinary. Opening the letter, Michael found words that seemed to carry the weight of the world, but also an incredible lightness of hope. Emily had written with such sincerity that her emotions practically jumped off the paper. She told how her songs had been her refuge during the darkest days and how she danced in her room, even on days when weakness almost prevented her from standing. He said that if he had just one chance in life to make a dream come true, it would be to hug him and say thank you. Michael was known for his generosity, but in that moment, The connection he felt with Emily was different. He stopped for a few moments, holding the letter carefully, as if it was something sacred. There was something about that story that struck him deeply, perhaps because he himself knew what it was like to live under intense pressure, searching for a greater purpose. Without hesitation, he looked at his team and asked to know more about the girl. Where was she? How long did they have to do something? That night's performance was already planned, but he wanted to create a special moment, a space in the show so she could feel seen, loved, and important. Logistics began immediately. The team located Emily and her family, who could hardly believe what was happening. The invitation arrived like a ray of sunshine amidst a cloudy sky. Emily was told that she would be taken to Michael's concert and have the chance to meet him in person. Meanwhile, Michael prepared something unique, a gesture that was not just for Emily, but for everyone who needed a spark of hope. He knew this meeting needed to be perfect. After all, it wouldn't be just another hug. It would be the hug she would carry with her forever. The night of the show finally arrived, and the stadium was vibrant, packed with energy and anticipation. Emily, wearing a t-shirt with Michael's face printed on it, arrived accompanied by her parents. She looked fragile, but her smile was radiant. For the first time in a long time, there was a sparkle in his eyes, a mix of anxiety and happiness that he could barely contain. Backstage, Michael was equally emotional. He had organized everything carefully, down to the smallest details. During the show, he knew exactly the moment he would stop everything to create an unforgettable moment. As he sang and danced, with the audience completely captivated, Michael glanced at where Emily was sitting, making sure she was ready. And then it happened. In the middle of the show, Michael asked for silence. The stadium, which moments before had been deafening, fell into an almost reverent silence. He approached the microphone and began to speak. He said in his soft and emotional voice that he had received a very special letter. He talked about Emily, without revealing intimate details, but mentioned that she was a source of inspiration and courage for everyone there. The spotlight turned to Emily, who was invited to come on stage. The crowd began to applaud, encouraging her as she was helped up by one of the assistants. With each step, Emily's heart beat faster, but she felt no fear. It was as if this entire moment was destined to happen. When she finally reached Michael, he opened his arms and enveloped her in a hug that seemed to last an eternity. The audience held its breath. Emily closed her eyes, and in that instant, all the weight of her illness, all the pain, disappeared. There, in the arms of her greatest idol, she felt complete, whole, alive. Michael bent down to her level and, with his hand on Emily's shoulder, said a few words that only she could hear. She smiled, tears streaming down her face, and he gently wiped one of them away. The audience gave a standing ovation, many also crying. It wasn't just another moment on the show. It was an act of humanity that touched the souls of everyone present. In that brief moment, Emily was the most important person in the world, and Michael knew that that hug would be remembered forever, not just by her, but by everyone who witnessed the power of love and compassion. As the crowd applauded, Michael and Emily remained on stage, in a moment that seemed to freeze in time. For those watching, it was a beautiful and emotional gesture, but for both of them, there was something even deeper happening. Michael held Emily's small, shaking hands, leaning in so he could hear her soft voice, almost a whisper. Emily looked directly into Michael's eyes, with a smile that was a mix of joy and relief. She thanked him for being her strength during the most difficult times. She talked about how, on nights when the pain seemed unbearable, his songs helped her keep going. And he said something that made Michael's eyes light up. "You didn't just save me, you taught me to believe in life, even when it's hard." Michael, visibly moved, responded with a sweetness that only he possessed. He told Emily that she was an inspiration to him, that her courage and strong heart were an example of what he always wanted to convey in his art. "You are stronger than you know, and never forget that love, hope, and dreams can take us to unimaginable places." Emily couldn't hold back her tears. It was as if Michael's every word was healing not just his heart, but his soul. Before letting her return to the audience, Michael did something unexpected. He took off the shiny glove he was wearing, one of the most iconic symbols of his career, and handed it to her. "This is to remind you that even in difficult times, you are a star. Never stop shining." Emily hugged Michael once again, and the audience, now completely enveloped by emotion, gave the moment a standing ovation. As she stepped off the stage, Emily looked up at the sky with a serene smile. At that moment, she knew she had lived the most special moment of her life. As Michael returned to singing, Emily's face remained etched in his memory. For him, that meeting wasn't just a connection with a fan, but a reminder of the impact his music had on the world. He felt deeply that he had accomplished something greater than any performance. The moment between Michael and Emily wasn't just on stage. As soon as the show ended, social media, newspapers, and television programs began reporting on the emotional encounter. People from all over the world, even those who were not fans of the artist, were touched by the story of a hug that symbolized much more than the gesture itself. He represented love, empathy, and the ability to transform lives with small but powerful acts of kindness. The video of Emily taking the stage quickly went viral. It was impossible not to feel something when watching the scene. A girl so fragile, but at the same time so strong, being welcomed by the man she considered her greatest inspiration. Her eyes filled with gratitude. Michael's kind words and the gesture of handing over his iconic glove generated a wave of emotional comments from around the world. Many people began to reflect on their own lives and how small acts of compassion can have a huge impact on someone's life. Organizations that worked with sick children reported that after Emily's story, there was an increase in volunteers and donations. Michael's message and Emily's example of courage touched hearts in ways no one could have predicted. Michael, in turn, felt the weight and depth of the moment. In later interviews, he mentioned Emily, referring to her as an angel who reminded him of the true purpose of his music and his platform as an artist. He said moments like that were the ones that really mattered, more than the awards, the records, or the fame. Emily, even after the show, continued to be an inspiration. Her family reported how, even in the face of her illness, she never stopped, smiling and talking about how that hug had been the best day of her life. Michael's gesture not only brought her comfort, but gave her family the strength to face the difficult days ahead. The world realized that, amid the bright lights and applause, what really defines someone is the ability to see the humanity in others. That meeting became more than a moment between fan and idol. It was a reminder that love, pure, simple, and true, has the power to inspire and transform, reaching more people than we can imagine. Emily spent the days following the show as if she were in a dream. The sparkle in his eyes and the constant smile were proof that that meeting had profoundly transformed his life. She held Michael Jackson's glove like a treasure, proudly showing it to everyone who visited her home. For her, it wasn't just an object. It was the symbol of a moment of love and hope that could never be erased. Despite the fatigue and limitations caused by the illness, Emily seemed refreshed. Her parents noticed that despite facing daily pain, she had found a peace they had never seen before. When he talked about Michael, it was as if his heart lit up. She said that that hug was all she needed to face what was to come. Not long after, Emily began to silently say goodbye to the people around her. She knew her time was running out, but she did it with serenity and gratitude. In her final conversations with her parents, she shared a special request that they continue to spread the message Michael had given her that night. Emily believed her story could inspire others to find strength in their most difficult times. The morning Emily left, the sky seemed quieter. His room, decorated with posters and mementos of Michael, was filled with calm. On the bed, the shiny glove rested next to her letter, the same one that had touched the king of pop's heart. Her parents, although devastated by the loss, found comfort in their daughter's last words. She said she was at peace and that hug had filled her soul with everything she needed. Emily left, leaving an indelible mark on those around her. His courage, his faith in life, and the gesture of kindness he received from Michael Jackson were remembered as an example of how love and empathy can make a difference, even in the most difficult times. Emily's story was not erased with her departure. On the contrary, it began to resonate even louder. Michael Jackson's gesture and Emily's resilient smile have become a symbol of how love and compassion can create real impact in the world. The girl's family, driven by the desire to honor her memory, created a foundation dedicated to helping children with serious illnesses achieve their dreams. The name chosen was simple and full of meaning, a hug of hope. The foundation quickly gained momentum, especially after Michael Jackson publicly mentioned Emily's name in one of his interviews. He talked about how meeting her had been one of the most significant moments of his life and how she had taught him something precious, that a small gesture can have an infinite impact. His words sparked a wave of support, with donations and letters arriving from all over the world. More than that, the story deeply touched the hearts of people who had never met Emily. Parents who faced similar struggles with their children found comfort in knowing that a moment of love can transform even the most difficult situations. Young people began to get involved in volunteer actions, inspired by Michael's example and Emily's strength. The idea that a hug can be a bridge between pain and hope began to come to life in thousands of acts of kindness around the world. Michael, in turn, made a point of carrying Emily's legacy through his shows and social projects. He began to include a moment in his presentations dedicated to children facing challenges, inviting some on stage, as he had done with her. Whenever he saw their smiles, he felt like he was, in some way, perpetuating the message that Emily helped him understand so deeply. The impact was so great that a song was inspired by this meeting. Michael composed a song titled Angel's Light, where each verse spoke about the strength of a young soul that shined even in the darkest moments. The song, released shortly afterwards, became a worldwide success, and all proceeds went to the foundation created by Emily's family. The legacy of that hug continued to grow, showing that human connection, when based on love and empathy, can overcome any barrier. Michael and Emily's story made it clear that sometimes what seems like a simple gesture can transform not just one life, but inspire an entire world. Decades have passed, but the story of Michael Jackson and Emily remains alive, told as one of the most beautiful demonstrations of humanity in the world of music. Documentaries, articles, and fan testimonials continued to spread the message of that unique moment. It was impossible to watch the video of their hug without feeling a lump in your throat or tears in your eyes. The Abrazo de Esperanza Foundation grew exponentially. With the support of people inspired by Emily's story and Michael's gesture, it has become one of the largest organizations dedicated to making the dreams of terminally ill children come true. The initiatives ranged from meetings with their idols to experiences that made them feel alive and special, even in the face of difficulties. Each new story that emerged from the foundation was yet another reminder of the impact that embrace had on the world. In schools, teachers used Michael and Emily's story as a lesson about empathy and the importance of small acts of kindness. The younger generation, who perhaps hadn't lived through Michael Jackson's time, began to know him not just as a musical icon, but as a man with a huge heart who touched the lives of a girl and, indirectly, millions. On social media, Emily's birthdays were remembered by people from all over the world. They shared photos of the moment on stage, the shiny glove, and Michael's words that marked that moment. Hashtags like Un abrazo of hope and Legado de Emily have become symbols of compassion and inspiration. People facing their own battles shared how the story gave them the strength to carry on. Michael Jackson, even after his departure, was remembered by his fans as someone who used his fame to do good. The song Angel's Light continued to be an anthem for those who needed hope in the darkest of times. It was sung at ceremonies, charity events, and even in tributes to the artist, as a reminder that the true richness of life lies in human connection. The story also became an example of how each person has the power to transform the world around them. Emily, an ordinary girl with a simple dream, touched the life of one of the greatest artists of all time, and together they created an impact that transcended the stage, music, and time. She taught the world that love, when genuine, is never lost. It multiplies, crosses generations, and continues to inspire, even when the protagonists are no longer here. The hug between Michael Jackson and Emily became more than a moment. It has become a universal symbol of compassion, humanity, and the transformative power of small gestures. Years later, as the world continued to change, the essence of that story remained untouched, like a beacon for those seeking inspiration in difficult times. The image of Emily, fragile but full of life, embracing Michael on stage, is still shared by millions. It was not just a gesture between idol and fan, but the materialization of something much bigger. The ability of human beings to connect deeply with others, regardless of the circumstances. That hug was a reminder that empathy has the power to change not just the present moment, but to echo through time. Michael Jackson, even after his departure, continues to be celebrated not only for his music, but also for his kindness. Many of his fans, inspired by his attitude, began looking for ways to do good in their own communities, perpetuating the impact of the moment they shared on stage. Emily, in turn, left a legacy that transcended her short life. She taught us that even in the midst of adversity, it is possible to dream, believe, and most importantly, love. Michael's gesture was not forgotten either by those who were in the stadium that night or by subsequent generations who heard about this story. The foundation created in Emily's name still thrives, fulfilling the wish she expressed before she left, to spread hope and give children moments of joy and fulfillment, even on the hardest days. In a world often marked by haste and indifference, Michael and Emily's story stands out as a powerful reminder that every moment counts. Every act of love, no matter how small, has the potential to transform lives, heal broken hearts, and inspire real change. The hug between Michael and Emily wasn't just a gesture of affection. It was a bridge between two souls, a connection that transcended time and space, and above all, it was a message to the world. Even in the darkest days, love can be the light that guides us all. This is a story that will, without a doubt, never be forgotten. And now we want to know, what was the moment when Michael Jackson's music or message impacted your life? Share your story in the comments, because each story helps keep alive the memory and legacy of an artist who dedicated his life to spreading love, hope, and inspiration. If this story moved you, show your support by leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. This makes all the difference in continuing to bring stories like this, which touch the heart and show the transformative power of empathy. Don't forget to activate the bell so you don't miss the next videos. Michael Jackson's legacy isn't just about music. It's about connecting souls, inspiring good, and leaving the world a little better than we found it. Join us in spreading these stories and keeping alive the memory of an artist who continues to transform lives.